there's a very good principle in AI. And again, I'm not a roofer, I'm an AI developer. That's what I do for a living. I've worked all over with government agencies, Fortune 500 companies, you name it. I've probably been in that industry at some point with a project. There's a very good principle in AI, and it basically is garbage in, garbage out. We call it the GIGO principle. If you put a bad photo into a really good AI algorithm, you're going to get a bad result. If you put a good photo into a good AI algorithm, you're going to get a good result, maybe even a great result. So this is about making sure you're putting in good data or at least okay data, because the bad data is going to get you a bad result. I always tell people AI is mathematics, not magic. And if you
Okay.
put in bad math and bad calculations, which is basically the data you're putting in the photo, you're going to get bad results. So we want to control the data and get you to take as good of photos that we know are going to be successful as possible. The caveat to this is don't crash your drone. A great photo is not worth you crashing your drone. We know there are going to be variances in the data, and we try to account for that as much as possible.
Okay.
So with Roof Hawk, we'd like you to be 12 to 15 feet off the roof slope that you want to take a photo of. And we want you to be perpendicular to the roof. We want you to match the pitch. So what that means, and this is a crude drawing, I'm going to show you a what we consider a really good photo in a second, because sometimes it's a little easier visually to do this.
Okay.
So the flatter the surface, the steeper the angle. So a flat roof, you'd have the drone right above it and go straight down because you're matching the pitch of the roof. A near vertical, Texas 12-12, ridiculous, you're going to fall off the roof kind of pitch, you're going to be almost perfect, almost right on and 90 degrees to the roof. So it really depends upon the angle of the roof. And like I said, in this drawing, this is a pretty good angle for this slope. What we always want you shooting towards the ridge. Okay. And the reason for that is your drone is up here. And if you shoot towards the gutter, what's happening by default? Everything's going away from the drone. As you go away from the drone, or any photo for that matter, again, it could be a regular camera, you lose detail. If you're shooting towards the ridge, the slope by default is gaining elevation and going towards the drone. So you always want to shoot towards the ridge and never towards the gutter.
Okay.
So assuming you're going to aim towards the ridge, this angle right here, this red line would be a perfect angle for this type of roof. So now I'm going to show
Okay.
you a real client photo, and I think we marked 38 hits on this roof, and they think it was 39. It was a State Farm roof. They bought it, no problem. And like I said, I think we went. It was either 37 for 38 or 38 for 39 on this roof. I forget the exact details on that. But as you can see, the bottom of the ridge is right there. They shot towards it. There's no sun issues. There's no whitewashing, no sunspots, nothing on here. But the biggest key and the easiest way to see if you're at a good angle is that even though different manufacturers can have different shingle sizes, on the roof, they're all going to be the same width. So if you see the shingle width at the very top here, and it is the same size or roughly the same size as the shingle at the bottom of the photo, you're at a good angle. If the one at the bottom is significantly larger, you need to raise the drone up and take an angle from a steeper angle. You're too shallow in the angle. And vice versa. If the one up top is significantly larger than the one at the bottom, you need to actually drop the drone down and shallow out the angle. You're too steep. So a good example is if you were even though I just told you not to do it, let's say you were at the ridge line shooting down towards the gutter, the one at the shingles at the top are going to be significantly larger by probably 5 or 6 times the ones at the bottom. And by
Okay.
vice versa, if you're at the gutter shooting towards the ridge, but you're literally at the gutter, aiming right at the gutter, the ones by the gutter are going to be 8, 9 times the size of the ones towards the ridge. You won't even be able to make out individual shingles by the ridge by the time you see the photo. So if you can mimic this photo, you're going to be golden with Roof Hawk. You'll be just fine.
Okay.
Things that belong on the roof, vents, pipe jacks, chimneys, all of that stuff, skylights, all of that stuff is accounted for. Now, there's none of that in this photo, but it would mark the soft metals on stuff that belongs up there. We want you to take photos of stuff you want to detect damage on, not patio furniture, concrete driveways. We've marked plenty of parked cars with hail damage because they dent the same way a soft metal does, but you're there for a roof, not for a car. So we want you to focus and get as much of the roof and as little as the exterior environment as possible.
Okay.
And they did, again, a really good job of that here. We know you can't always do that, so we do make sure that we train out trees, grass, roof debris, things like that. So it's not the end of the world if you can't do that, but we'd like most of the photo to be of the roof rather than, like, say, a shot of the backyard.
All right. Gotcha.
Now, here's a couple of things where I can totally see what they were doing, and a slight tweak will give them a much better result. So hips, they're on every roof, pretty much, except for maybe an A-frame.
Yeah.
You've got hips pretty much everywhere. We just want them on the far left or the far right. And it has nothing to do really with roof hawk or AI in general. It's the camera phenomenon that everything going away from the camera source is going to lose detail the further you get from it. And I'm going to zoom in real quick on this photo, and you'll see that you can't even see individual shingles down here. You can't even make out individual shingles. There's no way you're making out hail. At this
Yeah.
angle and this distance, not a chance. You'll be accurate to about here, and then it starts blurring real quick, and this slope is too far away. That may be hail, that may be hail, it might be, but it's really a 50-50 at best and probably lower than that. Whereas on this slope, this front-facing slope, you're going to be, in the upper 90s in accuracy. And so if you move this hip, so in this photo, we want you to move the drone over a little bit to the right and focus on this slope, and then take a separate photo of this slope over here.
Okay.
Hips can be a problem because by definition, a ridge or a hip is connecting two slopes. So one slope is going to be going away. A valley is the opposite. A valley is coming towards the drone. Valleys are not a problem because everything's coming towards the camera. So you're good on valleys. So this photo over here, this valley would not affect it whatsoever. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Another one that we want you to avoid is long roof shots. A long slope shot does not do well. And the main reason, again, is just because of how photos work. The further you get away from the camera, the less detail you're going to see. Now, this is a metal roof. You want to detect dents on a metal roof. You're not going to detect a dent probably past about here. You can't even see the individual slats on the roof all the way out here, let alone something like a dent. There's zero chance of that. This is a fine photo to show the scope of the property, a drone overhead shot, totally fine, just not for damage detection. There's zero chance that any of the hail on here is going to be anything better than just a guess right there, and then come back down the other way.
Okay.
Because there is no limit to the amount of photos you can process through RoofHawk for damage detection. There is no limit. Most users do between 4 and 6 because they're doing residential. But let's say you had a large commercial project, and let's say it's a 5-building apartment complex, and there's nothing wrong taking 10 photos per building and uploading all 50 images. The thing is, it's just 1 minute per photo. So if you did four photos, you'll get the report back in roughly 4 minutes, give or take a little bit. If you did 50 photos, you're going to get it back in roughly 50 minutes. So that's the only caveat to that, is the more photos you upload, the longer it takes for the AI to go through all the data. But again, for a commercial project of a huge apartment complex, it's worth taking the extra photos because you have more surface area to cover. A 2,000 square foot house, taking 50 photos is not necessary. And we leave that up to your best judgment. You're on the property. You use your best judgment as a roofer and a person who's a professional in the field. Use your judgment about how many photos you need. But you don't need 50 for a 2,000 foot roof or 2,000 square foot roof. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And the other problem with this photo is how much is off the roof. Remember, we want you to focus on the roof itself. We've got cars, we got a person walking, other buildings, we got box trucks, of course, huge concrete over here, bunch of trees. This is just not a good photo for damage detection. And very similar here, This is again a good one to take for an adjuster. He chalked up the roof. There's where there were a bunch of Cree shingles, and he did have some closer photos, and the roof was bought. I mean, there were Cree shingles and hail damage all over the roof. But this is a good scope of damage photo, not one you want to put through for damage detection. And again, you've got a whole bunch of stuff off the roof, and I like showing this photo because as smart as AI gets, and our AI learns every day. We use deep reinforcement learning, so literally every day our AI is learning more and more and more and more. But what we want to do is we want you to focus on the roof because there are errors that are going to happen, and there are things on the roof. And focusing on where damage should be that can be detected and can benefit, the inspection process. That's why we want you to focus on the roof. Is there are things like this that will trick the AI, and it will trick it for a long time because AI is not going to get to our level of intelligence for a while. Lowered it way down because he's probably 60 feet above the roof, and you could take a photo there, take a photo there, and then turn it and face the other slope and take one over there. And this is probably a 6 or 7 photo roof. It was a fairly large property, but it of more photos. But again, we want you to take it on the shingles. All this stuff that's on the roof, these pipe jacks, satellite dish, that solar vent, those are all fine because they belong on the roof. But when you start throwing in stuff like this out here on the concrete, you're probably going to trick the AI from time to time. Not every time, it's not going to mark everything, but from time to time, you will trick it and you'll get a weird thing that's way out here, or there's a shadow on a tree that looks like hail, but of course, we know it's a tree. And like I said, we do our best to train those out, and our AI gets really smart really quick. And it's already trained out most of that. But some problems are easier just to avoid rather than train it out. It'll be quicker for you to avoid it than it will be for us to completely eliminate it.
Okay.